Hey, it's Jay Foss. I'm back with part 3 of 5 in the Overrated Underrated series, as I've said in the other two. Just because my opinion is that they're overrated doesn't mean they can't be used effectively in certain teams, and the opposite's also true. Just because I say that they're underrated doesn't necessarily mean they're the best hero you can possibly have. So, as always, as I'm going through these opinions, keep that in mind. Alright, first up for overrated green, I have Gramps. Now, Gramps was a highly anticipated hero when he came out because it gave the 3-star hero the ability to revive. He does give a small amount of mana as well after reviving. The main thing here for me personally is that there's no heal. So Albrecht gives it a revive, some HP, but one of the biggest things Albrecht does is he does the heal over time so that after your guys come back they can survive. And rush, the rush options in general for 3-star tournaments have consolidated a bit. With the addition of Treeville and Sally and existing heroes like Bashan and Sudri, I don't think this guy is as impactful as his 5-star peers because he doesn't have a heal. A lot of times when he does, I do see him in rush and he goes off, he might bring a guy or two back and they don't even get to do anything because they're being revived with 23% HP. If this was Gramps, for example, 800, coming in with less than 200. So because there's no heal, I don't think the revive is as impactful as his 5-star peers because, at least in my experience, I just kill him again right away. You can definitely run multi-healer teams with him and rush, but then you have to think, okay, I can run Gramps and another healer or two is that really more difficult than facing Treeville and Sudri and Sally and all the other good rush heroes? I mean, if you set up these passive rush defenses, you at least have time. Whereas if you stick Treeville and Sudri in the middle, that's basically going to kill your whole team right there. So part of it's what's come out, I think, hurts where he would be good, which is rush. And the no heal, I think, really hurts what could have been a pretty cool hero to have overall. I will say at lower tournament levels, some of the more passive teams are more effective. So if you're not making 5% or 1% a lot, he may still be good there in rush. But to me, it's in rush now, if it's not like 3 or 4 very specific heroes, it's a nice little break from the death and destruction of the current 3-star rush meta. So for all those reasons, but mainly where he was valuable, he sort of got replaced, and having no heal is the big thing and why I have this guy on the overrated list. Next up for overrated green, I have Orla. The Slayer speed was just increased to the new Slayer speed, which is slightly faster than slow speed, so this card is slightly out of date. Deals 230% damage to the target, 460 if the target has less than 50% remaining health. In general, I do not like this perk, and the reason why I don't like this perk is that condition for 50%, less than 50% health remaining. In most cases, if you're just using a fast sniper, like in this case, Sedman or Cademan would be the example for green 4-star. If this triggers, in other words, if the enemy actually has less than 50% health, the vast majority of the time, a faster hero can kill them without the condition. So basically, in general, with these heroes, with this less than 50% health remaining, you're aiming to a very, very small range, depending on the star level, usually between a hit point range of about maybe 70 to 100 points. And you have to be in this very, very specific range for it to be in a situation where a faster guy wouldn't have killed him anyway, if that makes sense. So, like, for this perk, and this is across all the heroes that do this exact perk, basically, when that 460 procs, a generic Sedman snipe would have also killed them 90+% of the time. And that's the big issue I have with this less than 50% health perk, is that it looks great, but that 460 is not going to happen very often. And excuse me, it may happen, but the times when you actually need that 460 to kill are very, very small over when you could just put in the fast sniper substitute. So starting out relatively slow speed, a condition I really don't like for heroes. Those are the main reasons why I have Orla in the overrated category. Next up, for overrated green, I have Kastrat Costume. Boosted health is sort of in right now. The boosted health healers are pretty popular on offense and on rush defense. The big thing here is that it only heals 3, and generally the 3 healers are difficult to work in on offense and are very limited in their role on defense, almost always to the tank position. The second part is nearby allies get plus defense against fire. So in a vacuum, that's good, right? He gets plus defense against fire, he's green, it protects him. But if you think where you'd really be using him, wouldn't it be in a tournament, like a buff booster tournament, where red is omitted, right? And that's sort of the problem with a lot of these heroes, is that, especially the ones that are 3 healers and mostly restricted to the tank, that give this plus defense, is where you'd want to tank them, typically the color's already omitted. So if obviously you're not going to use them in bloody battle, probably not a good candidate for tank in rush. And if you're looking at him in buff, okay, he boosts health and gives a total of 3 buffs at average speed. Well, Brynhild gives 9 buffs total at fast speed. Or if you're just generically looking for a healer, this is buffs to all. This is 10 buffs at average speed, and he heals all. So basically, I just don't see a place for this hero to really fit anywhere. Outside of when you're starting the game and using a 4-star tank on your raid defense, then maybe. But once you get beyond that and are hanging out at 2,400 plus trophies, I just don't really see much use for him. So that's why he's in my overrated category. Next up, for overrated nature, I have Zoc. Obviously, this isn't leveled. This goes up to 300% to the target with a 739 attack stat before emblems. If you saw my video on Silvaria, a lot of this is competition. So, maybe you don't have a lot of tonics, or maybe you just don't want to invest in a 5, then this guy's faster and can do a similar type of effect. This guy's faster and can do a similar type of effect. There's another one. This guy's the same speed and does it for longer and has decent damage and decent stats for 4. So you basically have a lot of options where some are faster and some are less investment, etc. Now, can you use him in rush offense? Yes, absolutely. That's probably the one place where I would encourage you to use him if you have him leveled, because he can be decent in rush offense. But the thing that I think hurts him is the second part. Increases the mana of the target by 50%. So when that is blocked by monks or clerics, you're basically just giving them mana. Or if it's cleansed before the mindless triggers, like basically if a really high player sees this guy on defense, he's basically just going to bring a cleanse or Poseidon or something and then get Zox mana for free. And since it's like I said, it's 300% of the target when the special skill's maxed, that's a really low snipe, especially for average speed. Most of the heroes I classify as snipers that are worse damage are like charge 1 of 3 or very fast heroes, or heroes that aren't really true snipers like Lepiota or something. So like, it's really poor damage. The effect is valuable to an extent, but it's very frustrating if you're relying on him to shut down Mother North or something and they resist, or a savvy player is going against him and they can flat out exploit it. And since the damage isn't high enough, it's it's almost like if you're bringing Poseidon or something, or multiple cleansers, it's almost like getting free mana with no downside. So several 4 stars that can play the role without you having to use your tonics, low upfront damage, and I honestly think that the increase the mana of the target by 50% is a little bit of a downside because of the resists and stuff, or status blocking or whatever. There's just a lot of situations to where, especially on defense, but also when you're using them on offense, that you're just going to give the enemy mana if you're not paying attention or not careful. So for all those reasons, I have Zoc on the overrated category. And last for overrated, oh, how the mighty fall. Telluria. Now I actually have a ton of Paladin emblems. That's why I haven't stripped Telluria yet. And I don't really have anybody to put them on. So if you're wondering why mine's still at 20, that's why. But at one time, the premium tank in the game, very annoying. She was nerfed, which means she was downgraded twice. And it's really, she's a shell of her former self. This 90 damage to all, I believe, is the lowest for upfront damage of a hit all. The fiends, the minions are pretty weak. The heals, pretty weak. Mana generation's okay. I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's fine. If the other stuff was better, I'd be okay with minus 24% mana generation for 2 turns. And the crit link. So what I basically think you have here, and I realize she was great, and most people realize she's not great anymore, but is you have a hero that does several different roles poorly. So you basically have a hero that doesn't hit for enough damage to be a hit all, doesn't have strong enough minions to really be a minion threat, doesn't heal enough to be a reliable healer, and I wouldn't go as far to say as she doesn't control mana well enough to be a mana control hero. I'm okay, like I said, with a 24% for 2 turns. That's fine. Honestly, I think that's the strongest part of her special now. But I still see her at least probably once a day on defense. And I'd much rather prefer almost any of the modern heroes. Even some of the slower ones like Bertilla, the former hero of the month that hits all, who's a fighter. Unfortunately, this hero just has fallen from the best tank to almost useless. There really isn't much use at all for her on offense. And unfortunately for defense, she is a shell of her former self. So I realize that most people wouldn't consider her good anymore. But even if, you're free to play, cheap to play, and this was the one you got, I would I would probably still look elsewhere at this point for tank, because she's just not it anymore. Getting into the underrated, I have Dolgum. Now, I mentioned before that I don't particularly like these charge mechanics in Rush, and I explained why, because if he's on offense, it's going to take twice as long for him to get to charge 2 as like Trevo would get to his regular charge. So definitely not in Rush, but I like almost everything else about this hero in terms of, look at that charge 1 for buff booster. Okay. That's 10 total buffs potentially to your team for buff booster, whether he's on offense or in the tank position. And going beyond that, let's say you want to tank him in Bloody, for instance, then either one helps, right? So I like this hero in buff, but even if he's on defense and buff and he goes to charge 2's a good special. I mean, that's a long-lasting 5 turns for good effect. Also, charge 2 allows him to be used in challenge events. Now, blue is still the premium color for rare, obviously, but the moment we get a 3-star green that does minus defense in nature, then green's in the conversation for best color for challenge events. So, and you can even use him on the 4 and 5-star levels if you wanted to use green. I use Gunner on the 5-star or costume Gunner on the 5-star levels a lot for challenge events, because that shared damage paired with the minus defense is just so strong. So although not really fond of the charge mechanics in general, this hero gives enough utility because of charge 1 in buff and charge 1 and 2 in Bloody. This also helps in Bloody in particular. So and challenge events. So he's basically a 3-star you can use almost everywhere except Rush, basically. And that's why I have this guy on the underrated category. Next up for underrated green, I have Carver. Now, I will say that this guy is way less dominant in tournaments than he was a year ago even. But if you think of how painful Li Zhu is in some of the 4-star tournaments, this effect is still pretty good at various positions in various tournaments. Reducing the mana wall is a valuable skill. It's helpful in Rush. It's helpful in Bloody. He doesn't really do much for buff, but it's an underrated skill, and it's pretty good on defense. Now, one of the main reasons why I have him on here is just lack of competition. So he's passable on defense. He's obviously outclassed by newer heroes like Bashan, but if you're running another mana cut hero, well, then you can switch to the costume, and now you have minus mana generation and potentially the mana cut from a different hero. But if you think of how few green 3-stars, green 3-stars are full of support heroes. There's just so many healers and support. There's not a lot of multi-hit and hit-all green 3-stars. In fact, you're looking at the only one This is the only green 3-star that hits everybody. And if you even want to go into heroes that hit 2 or 3, then you only have this guy and this guy. That's it. Those are your non-snipers for damaging greens at the 3-star level. So while he's probably a lot weaker than some of the other ones I've had on the 3-star list, still serviceable defensively, and he just doesn't have a lot of other competitors. So for those reasons, I have Carver on the underrated category. Next up for underrated, I have Ren. Ren is sort of like a 4-star Finley, except she does minus attack instead of the minus defense, which is a big difference. That is one of the more valuable characteristics of Finley. But I will say I've seen this hero only one time ever in a tournament. And her skill, obviously being able to hit everybody if buffs are up, so that's value and buff booster. Minus 34% attack helps, and presumably could help in bloody battle. Her Raven family or whatever can make that minus attack undispellable. And basically, if you want a 4-star green that's fast and can hit more than one, you have Ren, Almer, who does the minus defense to green, and then the versions of Jack O'Hare. So not a lot of competition for fast heroes that can hit more than one at the green 4-star level. Utility in 2 of the 3 tournaments, especially buff. And, it's going to be okay damage if she can chain through a bunch of buffs. So I'm not sure why I haven't seen this hero more. But for those reasons I mentioned, the tournament utility in particular, in 2 of the 3, potentially even 3 of the 3 formats, that's the main reason why I have her on the underrated category. Next up for underrated, I have Guan Yu. He is a new hero from the War of 3 Kingdoms, and he's of average speed. Now, what I like about him that I think is underrated is 390 to target nearby. Currently, among the heroes that hit 3, and currently as in mid-April 2022, before Season 5, I might add, comes out, for guaranteed upfront damage, for a hit 3, this is number 1. Now, I don't classify Kongalak as a hit 3, but Kongalak is slow and can technically do more damage, but level 23 mana troop, 9 tiles, you have one of the hardest hits in the game. You get a little bit of minus defense, a little bit of minion counter, a brutally strong hit. We don't know what the final loot will be yet for the War 3 Kingdoms, and while this is a relatively small boost, let's say if there's Ether or limit break materials in the final reward tables for War 3 Kingdoms, I don't think there will be, but that we don't know how big of a deal War 3 Kingdoms is going to be is what I'm getting at. But yeah, give me a monstrous hit that I can get in 9 tiles, get me a little bit of minion counter, get me some minus defense, utility virtually everywhere, from bloody to, there's not a lot of places you can't use him. If you saw my video overviewing all the War of 3 Kingdoms heroes, I thought this guy was coming in overrated or underrated, and I think he's in the conversation for I think he's easily one of the 5 best greens in the game, and if I had to rank him right now overall, I'd probably put him 2nd or 3rd, maybe even higher depending on what you got. So for those reasons, I'm underrated. Alright, I got Marcel next for underrated. I love this hero. The upgrade to this family bonus I really liked as well. This was fairly recently. What I like about him is it's a massive hit 3 damage, sort of like the last hero on the underrated list. Among 4 stars of all colors that hit 3, his damage is second only to Cillian. Cillian's the red slayer. And he gives minus defense for the Titans. So I do use this guy a lot in tournaments, and because he gives damage minus defense, I believe he's a great, can be great at the tank position when red is omitted in bloody tournaments, but his damage is just so big that it makes him pretty versatile everywhere. Like I said, most people I think know this hero's good, but the upgrade, he's a massive upgrade over Buddy. Buddy is the Christmas hero, the little elf. And the thing that hurts Buddy so badly is his attack stat. That's a very low attack stat. And you may think that these minions are helpful in Bloody, and they are. He's still a decent tank in Bloody battle. But Marcel's damage is just so much, plus he can clear status ailments on himself, even if he's the only one from Circus. So, massive damage, cool family bonus, Titan utility, potentially event utility. I really like this hero as a 4-star. As you can see, I have him limit broken, but yeah, massive damage, a lot of utility. Just a great hero to have. Definitely, even though I think people know he's good, I think he's great. I still have him on the underrated list. And last, for underrated green, I have Ratatoskr. Now, I remember when this hero came out, there was there were a lot of things that people didn't like about him. They're like saying, you use all his tiles and there's not a lot of green left on the board when you're using him on offense. And while it's partially true, in my experience, and I do use several of the heroes that are like this on offense, if you see my war videos, and I think it's pretty powerful. It does not go away. The enhancement doesn't go away, even in Equalizer. So you actually have a perk that withstands Equalizer. He's in a situation where when he came out, there wasn't a lot of stuff for him. And then Mythic Titans were introduced. And oh yeah, the blue Mythic Titan you can't do minus defense on. So he gained a lot of value there. You think of Ninja Tower, where heal over time heroes are hurt a lot because the buff duration gets reduced, right? This also hurts when you're setting up stuff. Well, he's not affected by buff duration because he affects the tiles on the board. So, and he's a burst healer instead of a heal over time. So Ninja Tower sort of added to his value. When I used to do top 100 in Ninja Tower, I would use green. And a big part of it was the utility of Ratatoskr. So you got a lot of things, Equalizer, Mythic, Ninja Tower, that have increased his value. I think there's a huge misconception that you can't use this guy on offense. And I use this guy on offense all the time. In fact, I'm actually going to pull up a team here because I understand this guy's a little weird. This is the team I use him on. So I think a lot of synergy, a lot of survival. And if you're just looking at this like, oh, this team's not very good. Well, let me go a little deeper here. Oh, got some Titan loot. I practice against this team every single day. And you can debate if this is the best combination, but I think everybody agree this is a really good general defense. And I can go 80% against this team. With this team. So does take a little more to get the right team for him. But I love this guy on offense, and I think he's so underrated. I think people know he's good at the Mythic. They might not think about the Tower that much. But this is just a fun hero to have, who I think his value has increased exponentially. If you're one of those people that just keeps leveling the next big thing and hasn't got around to Ratatoskr, I guarantee you there are strong offensive combinations that you can work him into and see a high level of success even against the toughest defenses. So, as you can tell, I like this hero a lot. I almost did a second one, but Ratatoskr, for all those reasons, makes my underrated list. That concludes part 3 of 5 for the underrated, overrated series. I'll try to get out, next would be purple, and I'll try to get that out as soon as possible. Thanks for watching.